It's Matt along with Goo. And today we're going to do a very early look at Xenlon and all the wonderful skills that Xenlon has available. So stay tuned. Goo. Xenlon is the other big character in Dragon Quest III for the gacha pulls.
ほんで賢者8人に囲まれて
ところがどっこい。
His leadership, increased dragon breath power by 25%, is a little niche, but in my mind is actually a more important leadership than a lot of other sites and people give credit for. As I really think Dragon Quest Tactics is entering a breath meta that might get stronger if we ever get higher levels. As people well know, and I state over and over again, breath levels are only dependent on level, and they can only get stronger as time goes on. They ignore the dodge and other types of skills that can be very, very annoying. And dragons themselves as well are very, very strong units that could take a punch and are going to be really scary to go against in real-time arena, especially when you can't really counter their weaknesses very well. So let's just go on with Xenlon here. His first skill is Flameset Crawl. Very powerful. First breath damage to all enemies and occasionally seals them with a range of 4. Second skill, World of Dreams. This is actually really even more nasty than people will think. Inflicts breath damage to one enemy 5 times and heals 50% of the damage for you, which would be enough to really heal up a good portion of Xenlon's HP. And it's really important because if it's a 3 awakened or greater, having 50% of his HP or higher gives you 20% more damage, breath damage overall. This is on top of his ability on every odd turn, and it lasts for 3 turns to all dragons and 4 turns up to Xenlon, where it will increase breath damage, which until turns basically 9, but which basically gives Xenlon a massive amount of damage for breath overall. And it is really, really, really powerful. And keeping that HP up and being able to keep that HP up is incredibly important. And the last skill is Dual Kafrizz, and it is a 2 elemental attack where it does large frizz damage, then crack damage to all enemies within range. So yes, it does do 2 attacks with it, with 2 different elements. And in order to upgrade this, you will be using frizz books, not crackle books, just to let people know. So on top of that, that's going to give a really, really nice dual attack on top of it. The main issue with Xenlon, MP drain. You really need to get these skills up to level 10 to lower the MP drain as much as possible. You're talking about 72 to low 60s, and in 130s, you'll still be in the 110 regions by the time you're done. And the dual Kafrizz might get just to above 100. So it does a lot of pure damage overall. Told you about the intrinsic skill that Xenlon has, which is really buffing other dragons in a rhomboid around it by 3 squares. Very strong, especially with the breath meta. If you include that with the leadership effect and what it can do to itself, you're talking about 60-70% more breath damage total. It is very, actually, I think it's more than 90%. I need to do the math when we get Xenlon. Very, very powerful overall. Second is Frizz. Fourth is Sizz resistance. Very important because it counters a lot of the really strong attacks that units have with a lot of dodge capabilities, which Xenlon nullifies with only having breath attacks. And dual Kafriz is breath damage as well, just to be very clear on that. Its first awakening skill, the first 3 attacks reduce the damage by 50%. Very huge ability for Xenlon. Makes Xenlon really tough to kill very quickly. You do need to whittle it down with multi-attacks, etc., but it requires an awful lot of planning. And that's just the first one. The third one is what I told you, with as long as the HP is above 50%. And even with the quick units that try to attack you first, it's hard to do that right away. With that reduced damage, gives you 20% more damage dealt to enemies. So right there, you're already at 45% just from the leadership. That plus its intrinsic abilities, you're just talking really, really good damage overall. The last one, when it restores own HP when attacked by enemy, that is incredibly powerful with Xenlon, especially for the first 3 turns. It will heal a lot of that damage there, unless if you do massive nuke damage. And even then, you're still wasting half of all that damage attacking it. Very strong combination overall. If you look at the stats, the attack and wisdom are very low, but you don't care about that, mostly because of the fact that all of its major damage is breath. But when you run out of MP with 516, Xenlon does lose a lot of his luster. But most importantly, with Xenlon, you're probably only really looking for 3 to 4 overall damages. And even in PvE, you're just going to hold out for 3 turns until he gets his ability to double buff himself and just go all out at that point anyways. The HP and defense, though, are a wonderful combination, along with the ability to heal itself and to nullify half of its damage for the first 3 attacks on it. It's just incredibly important, and the agility at 473 is really, really good. Even though he is a dragon, he has a weight of 65. He is basically a boss-like unit overall. But he is part of the dragon family and can follow his own leadership. Worldbreaker, though, is not a dragon, and just make sure that you guys know this. Boss will not get buffed by Xenlon. So the preferred weapon is going to be Xenlon's Claws. MP plus 14, agility plus 17, and breath power plus 4, because you know Xenlon needs more breath power because he just doesn't have any, and that's a joke. It's going to be part of the Dragon Quest 3. Personally, I think you're going to really want to shoot for 1 World of Dreams and 2 Aurora Breaths for upgrades, but you get what you get. Mostly focus on that. It's a little frustrating that with the Xenlon Claws, you get the agility, etc. Other than agility, you get attack as one of your other ones. Completely ignore attack with the Xenlon Claws. It's a breath power. You're just really going to want those damages and agility. And for defense, actually, because it's a dragon, the Dragon Road gives a very good A armor that you can use for dragons. And use that if you want. It gives a good amount of HP. I know the one that I have does. That's what I'm going to give the HP mostly to on that, and focus the stats here for his breath power, just to add that much more damage. Because remember, a couple percent here is going to get multiplied by the increase if you use the leadership on Xenlon, plus his ability self-buff, which will be on his first turn. And so it just really adds to that overall damage. And if you do it correctly, you're going to be able to basically double his damage overall. So very, very strong. Yeah, people will say, well, what about... the big issue here is with the Xenlon Claws is there's not that much alchemy choices, or at least that are in the high end. If you get really low rolls, you will get some HP, but the really high rolls, it's very hard to get anything else other than these 3. That's what you're going to be shooting for. For learn skills, either blunt or buff. with Xenlon, you're probably just going to full out attack, but if you need to do the delay one turn, buff really makes Xenlon really nasty with the defense being is where it is. It's a pretty good skill in itself. Blunt, if you're really worried about one unit, would be another pretty good skill as well. Those are the two that you probably need to teach Xenlon. You don't want to do an attack. You don't want to do like a martial or even a spell. And he does not need another breath skill, even though, honestly, it's probably not a bad thing to learn some breath skills as well. So if you want to go ahead and add a breath skill to maybe do like a paralyze or something, but self-buffing, and my main units basically do this, that will be by far probably my biggest choice for doing all that stuff. And as I say, I really, really do hope to get him relatively soon. Oh, pros, cons pool. Pros. The ability to raise all Dragon's Breath damage and the Ramus around him is a stupidly powerful intrinsic ability, especially for Arena and real-time Arena especially. Dragons can be overcome by pretty smart planning, but real-time Arena, you're not going to be able to really counter it as well. And with Arena only lasting 10 turns, Xenlon's ability to pump up, especially after turn 1, will force your opponent to go to you because you'll be okay in waiting because you'll have the HP advantage, and the longer they take, the more powerful all of your dragons will become. And so using that will give you just that amazing ability to control the battlefield timing. If you're facing off against a Xenlon with your Xenlon, then you're playing chicken, and that's going to be a pretty interesting battle, especially if it's evenly matched. The First Awakening, with reducing damage being done 50% for his first 3 attacks, with third giving more attack ability, and fifth giving HP back. Those awakenings just hit so hard and are so well crafted that it's well worth the 65 weight. But the con is he is 65 weight. He's not the magic 50 that's just going to absolutely plow through everything. But just like Erdrick, these cons are really, really nitpicking. And if you couldn't tell, of course I'm pulling hard for Xenlon. It fits my team a little better than Erdrick, even though I do want Erdrick as well. Most importantly, I'm going to try and do a video before the banner comes out to compare Erdrick versus Xenlon and who is better for your team, not just who is better for my team. The unit for Xenlon, Elysium Bird, is actually an interesting unit, mostly because of Basilia, basically pushing one enemy 5 squares back. It doesn't sound incredibly useful, but remember that has a range of 3. But if you are in a battle with like a selfless, that you're facing like 2 or 3 really powerful units, and you want to keep one of those units away till you whittle down another, Elysium Bird will be actually really good to use. And then on top of it can lower speed with Decelerate or multi-heal with and greatly heal units. All in all, this is a very interesting unit. I wouldn't say I'm pulling on a banner for itself, but it's a unit that I could see some pretty niche and some pretty annoying uses. On top of it, too, in Arena, as long as you're playing with like a Diamond Slime in Arena, you could use the Elysium Bird to push away like one unit that you just want to save to last. It is risky, though, because you want to do all the damage you can by turn 3. But if it's a way to, even push away, like say someone's using a Diamond Slime in Guild Wars, then you could use the Elysium Bird to push it away, bring your own Diamond Slime, protect it, and then take off the rest of the units before the Diamond Slime gets through. Has some very odd uses, I agree, but at this point, those are the units that are most exciting are those. Has 4 movement, has enough MP, but its HP and defense are atrocious. Hence why I only suggest you use that unit with a selfless unit as backup. Its leadership effect is decreased nature spell MP usage by 10%. As I said in the other video when I went through the DQ3 overall, this is garbage. The First Awakening reduces MP usage, which is really helpful because the Elysium Bird is going to be using a lot of HP overall. And the Third Awakening will occasionally greatly increase spell resist for 4 turns. That is also incredibly helpful. That's all I'm really going to do with this review. It should be relatively quick. I did go over everything for Xenlon, so if you do get it, you know how to use him. And if you do go against him, you know what to do and not to do. I hope everyone has good luck and everybody enjoys. But most importantly, bye everyone.